Tuesday, December 15th, 2020, Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Today we're going to look at engineered crises. What does that mean? Well, in my opinion, the powers that be, they clean up their mess from previous decades even with engineered crises, so they can blame things that are not really that relevant to the cleanup, and so they don't have to put the spotlight on their incompetence, sometimes on their really intent to create havoc for the world, to actually not do what's best for your own interest, and by you I mean the general public. So I'm going to look at a book today by Lindsey Williams. And I've looked at this in the past, even earlier this year when the current crisis started. And I said, I think we're going to experience something like this. So there you go. And you could replace this for the current crisis, right? That's what I mean. And why are they using the current crisis? How do they use this crisis? Back in the 70s, the energy, well, I'll say it now, the Energy NonCrisis by Lindsey Williams. But what I mean is that you can replace that by maybe the health, right? Non-crisis. I won't say the C word, but when we look back at the 70s, we think of the oil embargo, OPEC oil embargo, because of the I think it was the Yom Kippur war in the Middle East between Israel and the Arab nations. So the Arab nations decided to put an oil embargo on the West. And most people blame the inflation and stagflation of the 70s on the Arabs. But Lindsey Williams in this book actually dispels all these myths and why were they trying to engineer this crisis? Well, I'll tell you why, in my opinion. It's because the powers that be, the U.S. government, they've been inflating the system since around the late 50s. And how do I know that? Well, you just have to look at the official gold reserves. They started dropping from the late 50s onwards. By the early 70s, they had more than halved the gold reserves. What does that mean? Well, it meant that the U.S. was consuming more than it was producing. It was inflating the system. And why did it do that? Well, Vietnam War, other guns and butter project, really, like the Vietnam War, and the Great Society reforms by Lyndon Johnson and so on. And of course, Nixon didn't stop it. They never stop these projects, politicians. They have to keep buying votes. And that's what it was about. They had to cover up the fact that they had been inflating. What better way to do it than, well, first of all, they had to close the gold window on August 15th, 1971. And then they had to send Henry Kissinger to Saudi Arabia to negotiate with the Saudis and OPEC to create like a petrodollar. And they said, we'll let the price of oil go up so you do really well, but you have to make sure you sell all your oil in dollars. And that's what happened. And is this conspiracy theory? Well, if you don't believe in Pastor Lindsey Williams, then maybe you do think it is. But on chapter 3, it's entitled Shut Down That Pipeline. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but this was back in 72, 73, just before the oil embargo. And Lindsey Williams talks about the fact that he was out west on a ranch, and he knew the manager of the ranch, and they were talking about how the government told the oil companies to shut down the pipelines of oil from the west coast of the U.S. to the east coast. And one of the pipelines went through this ranch, and he was told to shut down that the pipeline was going to be shut down. So here's the story. In 1974, the pumps were not running, and at the time, the man who managed the 32,000-acre ranch told me that the oil companies had told him that they had been ordered to close down the pipeline by the federal government. Mr. X, if there is as much oil at Prudhoe Bay as in all of Saudi Arabia, as you have stated, and if there really is an energy crisis, why was that cross-country pipeline through Wyoming closed down? You must know something about it. Mr. X said to me, Chaplain, I will try to be honest with you today, and I hope it doesn't get any of us in trouble. We're both Christian men, and we can only tell the truth. We as oil companies were ordered by the federal government in 1973 to close down certain cross-country pipelines and to reduce the output of our refineries in certain strategic points of America for the purpose of creating an energy crisis. That really began the first of the control of the American people. And Lindsey Williams says, I was astonished at what I was being told. Mr. X showed me the wells and let me know details about the size of the oil pool and the amount of oil that was there. He made the statement that Prudhoe Bay oil field is one of the richest oil fields on the face of the earth. So there you go. Prudhoe Bay is another oil field up in Alaska. But yeah, most of us were blaming, of course, the Arab nations, the oil-producing nations, or OPEC, for the oil energy crisis. We are always told that what caused the inflation and stagflation of the 70s was rising oil prices. Yet rising oil prices didn't help, but I would say it was just a cover for the fact that the dollar came off the gold standard because they inflated too much and there are too many paper dollars chasing not enough gold, and that's why the price of gold rose as well. And there's always someone in the background that's managing the crisis for the powers that be. One of these guys, of course, in my opinion, aside from Henry Kissinger, was Paul Volcker. Why do I say that? Well, because Paul Volcker was instrumental in advising President Nixon at Camp David, just before Nixon pulled the plug on the dollar and the gold backing. He advised him at Camp David on that weekend of August 15th for Nixon to close the gold window. And he was Undersecretary of the Treasury for International Affairs, Paul Volcker, from 1969 to 1974. After that, he went to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. And then after the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, he became chairman of the Federal Reserve in 1979. So he was cleaning up all the mess all along that he and these institutions were making. So who's the person right now doing this? Well, I think you have to look at Janet Yellen, maybe. People like that. Janet Yellen was at the Federal Reserve for a long time. She became chairman of the Federal Reserve. She was there also during the aftermath of the '08 crisis. And now she's been chosen to become the Secretary of the Treasury. So there's always these people there. Who knows, we could even see Ben Bernanke come back. So these people are always cleaning up the mess that they create, either through incompetence or through trying to really hurt you, the public, in my opinion. So what's the current all about? Well, I think it's all about the same thing. They've been inflating the system, at least in a really increased fashion since the '08 crisis. They had to bail out Wall Street. They're having to do that again. The Federal Reserve, Uncle Sam, their deficit spending, the debt's going through the roof. They have to have an excuse, a cover for the crisis it's going to create, for the monetary mayhem that they're going to create. And usually, I can tell you, during these crises, precious metals do well because they are the ultimate store of value. They're the ultimate money that currencies that are under pressure or come under disrepute have to be rebalanced against. That's what I think is happening now, and that's why things don't seem to make a lot of sense. Back in the 70s, we were blaming OPEC and the Arabs, right? And there's a lot of animosity, of course, because they're getting very rich. They're driving Rolls Royces. They're buying big yachts. The Arabs were like the people that the public had a go at back then. While today it's not a group of people, it's something, a disease, right? We're having a go at a disease. It's all because of the disease. And I think that's what's going on. And is it just them trying to reset the monetary system while blaming not themselves, but something else? Yes, partly. Unfortunately, I think they're also trying to not let a crisis go to waste, as Rahm Emanuel, who worked for Obama, I think he was chief of staff, mayor of Chicago, he said that, right? So they're trying all these other globalist goals that they've had for centuries. They're trying to use this crisis to implement that. Will they be successful? Who knows? I guess it depends on us and whether we accept all the authoritarian diktats. And it's only getting worse. And I know it's difficult mentally. And they're going to try to really be tell you what to do. That's what authoritarians do. And how do you fight that? It's difficult. It's difficult because if the majority of people acquiesce, it's hard for those who see what's going on to fight back. But I think we can fight back more mentally and spiritually. And that, by that I mean the way we think. We need to know who our real enemies are, and not to allow ourselves to be lured into this big brother mentality that the government is going to look after you, and that government and the powers that be really want the best for you. You need to be aware of that. I think that's a big step towards remaining sane and also maybe having some semblance of independence. So there you go. That's I highly recommend this book, the Energy NonCrisis. And I spoke about this, of course, as I said earlier, that I thought this was going to be the same kind of thing with the current crisis. And do I know exactly what's going to happen? No, but I have an inkling to what could happen. And that's why I keep telling people about gold and silver, about hard assets. Yeah, because they're going to let the whole inflation show up. And that's what happened in the 70s as well. And they're going to blame something else aside from their policies that they've had. You know, they keep saying that QE is deflationary, you know, and there's a lot of people who believe that. And that's a shame. They're going to be, I think, surprised. Anyway, let's look at the markets now, where they are this morning. It's 10 to 9 a.m. London. We saw the stock market come off yesterday, the Dow especially, a little bit back below 30,000. I saw the NASDAQ was pretty firm. Precious metals are still under pressure yesterday. Right now, though, we're seeing gold up almost $20, so it's picking back up. We're at 1845, up $18. We're right near the highs. High's been 1848. That's a key resistance here, 1848, 1850. We'll have to see if we can break through that level. The low's been 1824. Silver is up 42 cents, up about 1.8%. So silver outperforming gold this morning. We're at 24.25. The high's been 24.33. The Dow futures just back above 30,000 is at 30,020, up 159 points or 0.5%. S&P futures is up 0.5%. NASDAQ 100 futures up 1/3%. Sterling is down today after a big move up yesterday, actually, on talk that we'd get a Brexit deal. I think they're still negotiating. It's just really, I think it's going to be a last minute thing, or I even think they might extend these negotiations. We're also got news yesterday that from tomorrow, Greater London, where I am, is going to be into tier 3, whatever that is. It's basically a lockdown, a euphemism for a lockdown. We saw Germany and the Netherlands yesterday were put into lockdown. We saw that President Biden won the Electoral College vote. We've seen that the Attorney General has supposedly resigned. And I don't know. We still got January 6th now, which is when Congress, the Senate, and the House are supposed to count the Electoral College votes to really make it official of who is president. It looks like President Trump is still disputing things. I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of everything of the election, but all I can say is that there's still a lot of division in the U.S. I think if Biden becomes president, his opponents are going to have a problem with that. That's all I can say. Anyway, sterling is down 0.2% at 133.04. The euro is at 121.37, pretty much unchanged from yesterday. The dollar is a little firmer versus the yen at 104.08. Unchanged versus the yuan at 653. Oil price is at 47.10. That's unchanged from yesterday, late yesterday. I think it's a little lower from when I spoke yesterday. And to finish off, let's look at where the 10-year yield is. That's still under control, the 10-year yield. It's at 0.9%. So it's come off from around 0.94, 0.95 recently. So they're keeping it under control. I can bet the Fed's keeping an eye on that yield, making sure it doesn't go through 1%. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button. Please share it far and wide. Think about subscribing to my channel if you haven't yet. And you can also follow me on Twitter, Parler, and all these other platforms below here. I wish you all a great day. Take care. Bye.